And I believe it's live right now. To be honest, it looks like it's rolling. But when I looked at my other videos, as I thought I was going live, it was already live, and we are definitely live right now. Let me let me. It's echoing right now. Hold on 1 second. You still see me, right, brother?
I see you, hear you. I don't
Oh,
hear the echo on this end.
yeah, yeah. No, we good now. We live, live and direct from Norway to Pennsylvania. We got Dr. Professor Hiram L. Smith in the building. He's a social linguist, professor of Spanish. He graduated from Penn State. His research interests are language variation and change, um, stigmatized Spanish varieties. Did I say that right? The first part,
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
right, and
Yeah.
Creole languages, Palenquero. Am I saying that correct?
Palenquero.
Yeah, of course, Palenquero. I gotta get it with the accent. Now, Palenquero is that a um that's a form of Creole language, correct? What is? Can you explain the Palenquero?
Yeah, absolutely. So Palenquero is spoken in a place in northern Colombia.
Okay,
It was formed, the place is called San Basilio de Palenque, or a lot of people just call it Palenque
Palenque.
for obvious reasons, right?
Okay,
But
right. Was
but
that
it was
it? What'd you say? Colombia
in Colombia,
and
South
Colombia.
America.
Right, right.
Yeah, on the Caribbean, and it was formed in the 1600s by marooned fugitive slaves, people who were in bondage. They escaped from Cartagena, and they hid out in the hinterlands and swamps and mountains, um, and basically never got caught. And there were dozens of these little villages like this,
Right.
and the Spanish destroyed almost all of them, or they were abandoned. And this is the only one that survived. But
Wow.
anyway, they speak a Creole language. It's part
Got you.
Spanish and part Kikongo.
Okay, and we'll get back to that. And also, his research interest is African American Vernacular English. They also call it AAE. They have a abbreviation for it. Teaching interests: Hispanic linguistics, history of the Spanish language, sociolinguistics, and field and research methods. And he also has some noted selected publications. Uh, has nigga been reappropriated as a term of endearment, which I definitely want to hear about
Okay,
at some point, and I'm sure the audience does.
most
Uh,
definitely.
a qualitative and quantitative analysis. Now, when you talk about a qualitative and quantitative analysis, what do you mean? Just a very extensive,
I mean, we can get into it in more detail later, but for
right,
the most part, it was a quantitative study. I looked at ex-slave recordings. I compared them to modern day speakers, how
right,
black folks used to use the word nigga back
right,
in the slavery period versus today. So
right. And that was American Special Issue, Duke University Press. Then also he has addressing questions of grammaticalization in Creoles. It's all about the methodology, grammaticalization from a typological perspective. Oxford University Press, habitual aspect marking in Palenquero, variation in present temporal reference, selected proceedings of the sixth workshop on Spanish social linguistics, Cascadilla Proceedings Project. Now, what is a social linguist? What would you?
yeah, so that's a good question.
Right,
So because we know that language is never divorced from its culture or from society, right?
correct,
It's not just
correct,
about rubbing nouns and verbs together and adjectives and participles. So sociolinguistics is the study of the relationship between language, nouns and verbs and participles, and discourse and conversation and so many other aspects of language,
right,
the
right,
sounds and so forth, and its relationship to not just grammatical categories or factors that influence language use, but also the social factors like a person's ethnicity, a person's gender, a person's age, the social class, the level of education,
Mm.
how do all of those things conspire together to influence what comes out of a speaker's mouth
And give
or a
it that,
community of speakers' mouths.
give it the meaning, the full meaning.
Yeah.
Right. Now, what got you into what sparked your interest into this field? What in linguistics or whatnot?
Yeah, that's
Did you start out one looking into doing linguistics or
no,
no?
no, not at
Oh,
all. I mean, I've
okay,
always been interested in languages. Even
correct.
from high school, I took Spanish. I
Right.
had this fantastic Spanish teacher.
Okay.
He's passed, but his name
Mm.
was Scott Simpson, H. Scott Simpson, and he took an interest in me. And he had another job besides teaching class. So we used to go mow grass together, and we would practice Spanish. So
Right.
he would always kind of build me up and and encourage me. But to make a long story short, it took me a while to get to go to school.
Right.
And so when I was about 30, I
Oh,
went back to school.
my check this out. No, no, go ahead, finish that because there was some important stuff
Okay.
that I forgot to tell the audience as
Well, it's all good.
as you're
This
talking
is
about.
conversation.
Right, 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 right. As he's talking about his upbringing, I can't believe we just jumped in getting all formal and stuff when I just
Yeah,
said we can be
exactly.
informal.
Let's just
But
keep it. We from the same town.
there you go. So that was what I was about to mention. Little to my well, I didn't know. I found this guy in a Facebook group called Historical Linguistics and Etymology. And I've read some of his posts when he talked about certain the etymology of certain words that we use on a daily basis that we don't consider where it came from. And then there was this one particular post where Dr. Hiram talked about the African American Vernacular English, and as I read it, I was like, man, this guy really knows his stuff. And I had first off, I had no clue he was black from that little thumbnail or whatever. And but and so I had no, but when you made that post,
I've been in the house for a year.
right, right. Exactly. He's a light skinned brother like me. But my excuse, I'm in Norway. I'm up north. But the thing is, like I said, he was going in on African American Vernacular English, and I was like, "Look, what's this guy's background?" So when I clicked on there and I saw that he was African American and that he was dealing with linguistics, I had to contact him. And when we did communicate to find out, he's from the same town where I was born and where I'm from. And so the odds of that, it's crazy. It's almost like the stars were aligned, like I said. And to find out that his brother went to the same high school, not only his brother, his father went to the same high school, Eisenhower.
Mhm.
Am I correct, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yes,
And
sir.
but so we definitely um yeah, we never crossed each other's paths or whatnot, but yeah, we it was crazy when I realized that you were from the same town and we never knew each other, and I'm into this stuff as well. But anyway, so you were talking about how you got it. Well, your first
Yeah,
start in the schooling process was you were interested
yeah,
in doing
right.
what?
Yeah, so let me just back up very quickly. And my mother, she her father was in the military. She lived in Italy as a little girl in Germany and so forth. And then my stepdad, who raised me, he always had this interest in books and stuff. We'd pick he'd get the Globe out. This is when we were kids,
That's what's up.
and we'd play Name in the Capital, or
Right,
he'd get the
right.
dictionary out and be like, what's the definition of this word? So really, when you go back to the antecedents,
Uh,
I owe them a lot, right? In a serious way. But when you
absolutely.
fast forward to going to school and the academic part of it, I started taking Romance languages, and then I took a linguistics class, and I was like, oh. And then I took this class called Pigeons and Creoles
Got
uh,
you.
with Professor Clancy Clemens. and I found out that Creole languages, what were they? What was their relationship to African American English? And then I realized that there was this big old debate in linguistics as to where does Black English come from?
Right.
What are some of the features that what we see in African American English that we
Right.
don't see in many mainstream American varieties? Do they come from Central West African languages, from some Creole language, from an old colonial variety that was spoken by the English colonists? Yeah, so these questions started fascinating me.
Right.
And it also kind of grounded me as far as my history, because I wanted to look into that history. Because Black English is the language of my home and my grandmama. That's the language
Same.
that I grew up hearing.
Same
In
here.
the language that I hold dear.
Right. Right.
But it's also, we've always been told that we don't talk right.
Stigmatized, like as you
Yeah.
said before, and some people, when they read the text on Facebook or whatever, they end up saying that they're so quick to try to correct somebody's grammar or in the usage of a word when they don't even realize uh, that the African American AAE vernacular English is used much more common than you think, and it has, as you said, they have components of it in a real how do you call it, communicable language or whatnot, that has certain rules and things
Absolutely.
like that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So the what was that project that you had mentioned? You had mentioned something about Oxford University.
Oh yeah. Well,
About the
yes.
excuse me, about the Oxford Dictionary.
Yeah. So the Oxford English Dictionary is actually undergoing its first major revision in 150 years, really ever. Now
Wow.
they do rolling revisions every 3 months, once a year. They add new words. They
Right,
tweak
right, right,
something.
right, right.
But this is the first major overhaul of the Oxford English Dictionary. Now, the Oxford English Dictionary is the only historical dictionary of the English language. So this is the
So
one
that
where,
so that so that Webster don't count then. That
I
Webster's
mean,
American. That's an American, right?
well, Webster does have like etymologies and stuff and word
Right,
histories, but
right.
Oxford will tell you when was the first time a
That is
word was attested in the language.
that's like the standard right there.
1200s, the 900s, the 700s,
Got you,
Chaucer.
got
So
you.
anyway, what they have done is they've comprised or composed these research advisory boards, and one of them is to add and revise lexical entries for African American English. So
Mm,
words like sedity, uh, ashy, and so forth, will be included in the dictionary. And if they already are there, the definitions will be modified. And
right.
this research advisory group is comprised of African Americans.
Mm. Now I'm glad that you mentioned that. When you said it's comprised of African Americans, I remember that we had spoke some days before about how the AAE African American vernacular English used to be comprised of, well, people that weren't of people of, that wasn't a person of color that studied our language usage in the past.
Yeah.
Is that true? Well,
Yeah.
and
So
for the most part, the I don't know if the founders of this or the earlier people
yeah.
that studied this the
No, you're
AAE
right. You're
weren't
right. So
people that actually used it on a daily basis.
that's right. So the
Hence
first
the importance.
yeah, the father of modern sociolinguistics is a wonderful linguist named William LeBove.
Okay.
Um, and he's at the
Is
University of Pennsylvania.
is it,
Now,
is he French or
no, he's
okay?
American.
Okay, gotcha.
But he did some research in 1968. He published the first paper on Black English, and it
Gotcha.
showed that it was systematic, it's rule governed, it's not just a collection of errors. And this research and some other research that he did at the time, about the mid late 60s, really took off. And so other researchers began to start looking at stigmatized speech varieties, start looking at Black English.
Right.
Um, researchers like Wolfram and
Okay.
Ralph Folsom and others, Foshold.
Right.
But the thing is that these initial studies started to get some traction with many other varieties. So people started looking at other stigmatized varieties and looking at their systematicity, if you want to call it that.
Okay.
But then about the 70s or so, you started seeing other Black researchers getting involved and jumping into the African American debate and also the Creole debate.
Gotcha.
Scholars like John Rickford, a wonderful scholar. All of these scholars that I've mentioned do fantastic work, both white and Black.
Right.
But about the 1980s and 90s, and certainly now, there are more researchers who are doing research on Black English who also happen to be speakers of AAE.
Right. Right.
But
Right.
by and large, I would still say that the majority of people who work on this variety are not Black, or either are not Black, or they don't speak the variety.
There we go. Yeah. Now, we talked before about the importance of it, and then especially in today's climate, where they have, it's definitely in need of police reform and all these things like that, and misunderstandings, like the George Floyd situation.
Yeah, yeah, indeed.
You had mentioned this. What was the one thing we were talking about when they were? Uh,
Yeah,
yeah, you can
right.
kind of
Yeah,
elaborate
so
on that.
this is so when you think about it,
And then the
you said, well,
court systems and
yeah, you
stuff
said,
like
now
that.
why would you want to study African American English? Why would you want to
Right.
study any dialect or variety that is looked down upon? It's not the
Right.
standard. Well, that's the way people used to think. They would say, we're not going into a Black neighborhood, study these Black for what? For who?
Right.
There's no scientific value in that.
Right.
And so for hundreds of years, nobody did. This is the value of William LeBove and all of these people that I mentioned, their work and their research. But it has implications. So, for example, let's just take the George Floyd or the Derek Chauvin murder trial.
Right. Right.
Okay, so a couple of weeks back, it was all over the news that the defense attorney for the police officer was trying to say that George Floyd said, I ate too many drugs.
I ate too many drugs. Right.
Right? Because they were trying to set this scenario up that he didn't die from the knee on the neck. He really died from like congestive heart failure or drug overdose or something like that. And that's what he said. Well, you listen to it, and of course, the Black linguists that I've spoken to all agree that he didn't say that. He said, I ain't ate any drugs. Now, all you got to know is Black English 101, and you know that in Black English, ain't can mean didn't. So in every variety,
absolutely, and I use
right?
it.
It means I didn't eat any
Right,
drugs.
for
Now,
sure.
in every variety of American English that uses ain't, and of course, this is other, not just limited to American varieties,
Right.
but ain't can mean am not, is not, are not, have not, right?
Right.
So he ain't here, he is not here. But only in Black English can it also mean did not and does not. That one fact, if you had a linguist in there, one who knew and understood Black English and who could speak authoritatively on this issue,
Correct.
would have put that to bed in a heartbeat.
Correct.
So, because I think the importance of this is because I ate too many drugs and I ain't ate any drugs, are they're the exact opposite in meaning.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, so I mean,
Absolutely.
people's life
Absolutely.
and
So,
livelihoods and
so
freedoms are on the line. Justice was on the line.
right. And speaking of that, you yourself, on the short bio that I sent out to people, that you attended a court proceeding that dealt with somebody uh, being resulted in him they're trying to fire that person, or what happened? Was maybe,
Yeah, we can
but I think that,
probably,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, that has more to do with the N
The N
word.
word, got you. Okay,
But we can definitely get into that when we discuss the N word. But something else
absolutely.
that's relevant here,
Yeah,
Rob, is there's some research by Taylor Jones and his colleagues. He's a friend of mine, I'm proud to say,
right.
uh, white linguist. He did some research on the court reporters in Philadelphia. Okay, so
Yes.
now this is, now we know that a court reporter, a stenographer, whatever, has to be certified to 95, 97% accurate. So first of all, they fast as lightning, right?
Absolutely.
They get it way
Absolutely.
down, but they also have to be accurate, which is
Right.
probably the most important thing, right?
Right. Right.
But this research showed that when they were transcribing African American English, the accuracy levels was way down, like 60%, getting stuff
Mm.
wrong, and misinterpreting things. Research by John Rickford and his, at the time was his graduate student, Sharice King from Stanford, both from Stanford, um, did some research on the Trayvon Martin,
Okay.
George
Okay.
Zimmerman trial.
Got you.
So
Got you.
you remember Trayvon's homegirl, Rachel
Okay.
Jantel. Remember her?
Okay. Okay.
She
Yeah.
was the only one on the phone who actually heard the murder.
Got you.
Remember, because he said, this dude's following me. So she was on the phone the whole time. She heard him fighting, hollering, screaming. She heard the gunshots. She was the only ear witness, so to speak. So she was the key witness. She get on the stand. She spoke Black English. Had a lot of African American English dialect features.
Right.
We can talk about some of those. But
Florida.
she was viewed,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. But she
Right.
was viewed as juror B37 when she was
Uh,
interviewed by Pierce Morgan on
right.
CNN. They
Mm.
said, we didn't even understand what she
Hey,
said,
hey, you know
and
how
we
you know
didn't
you,
find her credible.
right, right.
And he got off scot-free. So
Absolutely.
the question is, if there had been a linguistic forensic expert to take the stand, talk about the features of her English, showed that she was actually speaking her vernacular, which also studies show that is your most unmonitored, relaxed speech variety.
Right.
That she might have also been telling the truth.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot
A lot of
to it,
element, yeah.
and not just in the
The
criminal,
importance of it,
but
yeah.
also in schools and in housing and, man, you
Right.
name it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Um, we were talking about also but that was another. It was about the N-word debate, I believe, with the Jay-Z and the Oprah Winfrey and Beyonce when they went on there and they were talking about the N-word or whatnot. They were saying, what was Jay-Z's take? That he was saying more an endearment, or he was trying to explain or gave his
Yeah.
explanation of the word or whatnot. And
Yeah. So
yeah, go ahead.
some other research that I've done, and as you mentioned at the beginning, um, I had a study
Well,
published.
the main point I was trying to make was that there was plenty of cases. I remember you telling me that if they were a linguist, eh, on most cases
Oh, I
you
see where you're going with
right,
this.
right,
Yes. Okay. So even with the use of the word nigger, if I
right.
can say that on here,
Yeah, of course. Right, right. The
okay. Hey,
logarithm or whatever the logarithm. I don't know what they do to
you never
block
know.
videos, but we're good, bro. Whatever. Yeah, yeah.
But there's a lot of misconceptions. This is, yeah, you're making a good point here. Even among Black folks,
Mm,
and the way we use language, this isn't just white folks misunderstanding us.
right,
So you get folks on TV that, for example, that may talk about the word nigger,
right,
and hip hoppers may say, we only use it as a term of endearment, period. We
right,
flipped it, we changed it. It used to be a racial slur, we
right,
repackaged it, and now it's just my homie, whatever, my nigga. But when you do the research, and I have, and we can
right,
talk about this later,
right.
this is not the only way in which Black people use the word nigga.
Correct.
We use it in many different ways, many shades of meaning, positive and negative, and it
Absolutely.
just mean, a dude, a person. you
Right.
know. But but when you have these conversations on Oprah and on CNN, there ain't a linguist in 100 miles.
Right.
And so you get people on there who are well-meaning, but they be talking about stuff that they've never researched. And one of the biggest questions is if the word nigga really has changed meanings. That's a great question.
Right.
But the only way you can answer that question is if you find out, number one, did Black people use it a long time ago? Did the slaves use it? How did they use it? When did Black people start using it? Did the meaning change? When did it change? And then it change to what? See, we can't just be saying things
And also that,
without any evidence.
and also that, uh, that misunderstanding that only, if the black person, we say the nigga, and then the white person say the nigger, then it's racial. We were the, like, they, like, as if they never used the nigga word, and
Yeah, and
in
that's
historical
also
past, which is kind of untrue, as you mentioned
absolutely, and that's
before.
also
So they've been, white folks been using nigga, from back in it.
yeah,
Both version,
well, I mean,
all variations, so
yeah,
that's not whether it was good or in the bad.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
right.
But
So
that's also an empirical question. I mean, if we say that only Black people say nigga and white people say nigger, or all you got to do is go to the South,
right,
American South,
right,
and you can scratch that lie in a minute
for
and
sure, for sure.
uncover it. Right?
Right,
It's just not empirically validated.
right, right. So it's a variety of meanings. Well, we want to get into. Oh yeah, so he's right now. He's in. You now reside in Pennsylvania because you're at Bucknell. You're a professor. I forgot the name of the school that you were a professor at. You're at Bucknell
Yeah,
University in
yeah,
Pennsylvania, Amish country.
yeah. We're right in the heart of Amish country, Pennsylvania Dutch language,
Right.
Pennsylvania German
Yeah,
speakers too.
that's right. Because he dabbles into some of that Pennsylvania Dutch
I do
language as
indeed.
well. That's interesting.
Do.
Um, so yeah, so what I would like to do is he has a little presentation or whatnot that he can get on as we share our screen, and as we,
Yeah, let
yeah, you can go ahead and
me
set
find this.
set that up. He has a few PowerPoints or whatnot.
Yeah, and I
There
won't
we
bore
go.
you with all of them.
Yeah, yeah,
But
no problem.
what I wanted to do is just to illustrate a couple of things. One, that African American English, the Black English, does have rules. Number
Absolutely.
two, that some of the things that Black speakers do when they talk, uh, speakers of other varieties of English do it too, but they're just not aware of it. So let me just give you a couple of examples. Um, and forgive me for all these PowerPoints. I'm just going to skip over to a couple that
Oh,
I
that's
think
fine, brother. That's fine,
might
brother.
be interesting. So here's one thing I like to do with my students all the time. Let me make this bigger here. Hold on. Yeah, this is what we do with the students. I say, okay, y'all know who this is, right? Who these two people are? They say, yeah.
Elmo,
Okay, all right. This Elmo, and who is this?
the Cookie Monster.
All right, the Cookie Monster. So we know who it is. Now, when we look at the picture, we see something. We see Elmo with a cookie in his hand. He's probably eating cookies, and Cookie Monster does not have anything. So I ask the students and other audiences, I say, okay, now based on what you know and what you see, which one, who be eating cookies? Elmo or Cookie Monster? Now for the audiences out there listening, just think about it for a second of how you would answer. Would you say Elmo be eating cookies or Cookie Monster be eating cookies? Based on what you see and know. Well, in most cases, in every case, my white students, or more accurately, the students who are not familiar with Black English, almost always say Elmo be eating cookies.
Mm.
And then my Black students say, no, Cookie Monster be eating cookies. And it's because
Oh, for reading that question, who be eating cookies? Yep.
yeah, because people who are not familiar with Black English
Right.
misinterpret this unconjugated verb to be as meaning present progressive, something
Other,
happening right now.
otherwise known as what? Ebonics.
He is eating cookies right now. That's how
Right.
they interpret this.
Right. No, but I'm just saying when we say Black English, some people call it Ebonics, or some even slang. I don't like when they say slang, but Ebonics or African American Vernacular English. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you have, of course, even though Cookie Monster doesn't have any cookies in his hand,
Correct.
the,
Correct.
the correct answer is that Cookie Monster be eating cookies. Why? Because, and this is well known, that this unconjugated verb right here, to be, means habitual, an action that takes place repeatedly over a period of time. So Cookie Monster be eating cookies all the time. He doesn't need them in his hand right now because we know that's his habit. He be eating cookies. But it's also interesting too that since that is the meaning of habitual be is what we call it, that
Right.
means you cannot say in Black English, I be a doctor and he be a lawyer. Now, when people imitate Black speech, oftentimes that's the imitation, but you'll never hear an African American English speaker say, I be a doctor or I be a professor.
Right.
And using the verb to be as a linking verb. It don't happen. It's used as habitual. So you can say sometimes my ears be itching.
Oh, okay.
She usually don't be there. Habitual.
Right.
So that tells us something. There are rules. You can't just say anything you want to in Black English. You see? So while some people will say that this unconjugated verb to be is nothing more than bad English, no, there are rules. It's just different rules.
Right.
So that's just one famous example.
Now, people that are tuned in live, I'm with Dr. Professor Hiram Smith, and we're going over the fallacy of linguistic prejudice. If there's anybody out there that have any questions, you can go to the live chat, because I'm able to look at the live chat now that I'm not the one hosting the whole show, the whole time. So I can ask him any questions if there's any questions in pertaining to African American Vernacular English or Ebonics or whatever some people may call it. So yeah, just go to the live chat to ask any questions or anything like that, and I'll make sure that I ask them. But you can continue on. Oh yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe. Yeah. And then I'm gonna leave his information. And I'm gonna leave his information at the end of the video as well.
Yeah, for sure.
All of his links. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. So here's another example. So some people, if not a lot of people, believe that Black English, and you mentioned it earlier accurately, it's just slang, it's street talk, it's from the hood, it's ghetto,
right?
It's hip hop, and it's only spoken by young people, young Black people, or people who listen to that music.
And in some cases, some of them try to act as if we don't. Some of us don't know how know to use certain words properly, and don't realize that we just chosen to use a certain African American vernacular in certain situations. Then you'll have people coming after us trying to correct us when we're like, bro, I knew how to use. I knew how to use that word. I just selectively chose to use this certain word or talk a certain way.
No, you're making a good point, because most of us did go to school and we were exposed to standard English.
Right.
Yes, that's another issue that's important. So some people will think that it's just lazy speech or slang. Right. But so here's some examples. So this first example here is not Black English necessarily, but we hear George W. Bush say American.
Right.
So when you drop the syllables out, they say that's lazy speech. Or we say, you say something like "excuse me," which is not limited to Black people. Right. You're about to get on my nerves, or when you gonna pay me that money. So which is
Or
I've
or
had to
he
ask
or
that
he
question.
or he finna he finna do that.
Yeah, that's right. He finna. Now the question is, where did the other syllable go? Why did it
Mm,
disappear? Is it
mm.
because people are lazy? Is it because they can't read? You know, you say, can't you see that in the word about there is an A there? What's the matter with you, right? So there are assumptions also that are made up about intelligence. But what I'd like to show you here quickly and also argue is that all speakers do this. Let me give you an
Absolutely,
example. Let me give you an
absolutely.
example. So Rob, how would you
Norwegian
pronounce?
Norwegians do too. I hear them.
Absolutely.
I hear them cutting off certain words or whatnot
This
where
is
they
very
don't use it.
common.
Yeah,
And in a
like when it
second, we'll find out why. So let me
right.
ask you, Rob, if you'll just play along with me real
Mm,
quick.
yeah,
How do you pronounce these words, these names here? Can you see them on the screen?
yeah. Margaret, Catherine, Every, Possum.
Okay. Now, most people, when they're not reading, do not say Margaret. They say
No,
Margaret, just
right.
two syllables,
Margaret, right?
right? Or Catherine, two syllables. And
Definitely.
most people, when they're just speaking normally, they don't say every, they say
Right.
every.
Right.
Just every day, every.
Right. Right.
Two syllables, not three.
Right.
So the issue is then, why do people make these? And of course, we know that the word possum used to be opossum with an O,
Mm,
right?
mm, mm.
Historically. So why is it do people say Margaret, Catherine, and every? Well, I argue it's for the exact same reason that they say excuse me and about to get on my nerves. So where did that extra syllable disappear to and why? So if you notice right here, um, we can see that the syllable that disappears in every one of these words, including the ones on the other slide, is the unstressed syllable.
Mm.
So notice the stress is on marg, cath, ev, and pos, right? And the syllable next to it that's not stressed, it disappears. And that's the schwa. So Catherine, Margaret, those are that sound is the one that disappears. Now you go back up to the examples, excuse me, about, gonna, right? American. Notice that's the syllable that disappears. So what's interesting about this to me is that we notice it when Black people do it or when people of rural communities do these things,
Right.
but we don't notice it in our own speech
Correct.
because everybody does it.
Right.
Unless when you're reading, now you just illustrated. Now, when you're reading and you're on your best linguistic behavior,
Right.
you see what I'm
uh,
saying? We tend to pronounce the full word. You say, I'm on
uh-huh.
TV here,
Uh-huh.
I'm on the internet, I'm gonna say Margaret and Catherine. But
Hey, the
but
bright
when you
lights.
just
Don't get into it.
that's right. But when you at home drinking a beer,
Right.
talking to your mate, and just the monitor's not on, and
For
you're
sure.
speaking your most regular, unmonitored, unself-reflecting speech
Unvarnished.
variety, you're
Right.
gonna say every, and you're
Right.
gonna say about to.
Right. Oh,
That's just
most
how it is.
definitely.
Now, this is one of the main insights of sociolinguistics, which is that we want to always try to tap into what's called a speaker's vernacular. So,
Okay.
what's the vernacular? Our vernacular is your most unmonitored speech. You're no when you're kicking it with the homies. You don't got to put you're not in court. You're not in front of an internet audience.
Right.
You're not giving a speech at Oxford University. You're just being your regular self.
Right.
This is when we start to see these types of phenomena, speech phenomena.
Right.
But as people have more access to education, the standard, which says that you should pronounce it as every, or when you're in formal contexts, and this might be considered a formal context, like an interview or these other situations that I mentioned,
Right.
we tend to correct toward the standard.
Mm.
And if I may, let me just say one more thing about Bill LeBove. This is what started all this sociolinguistic stuff. So
Okay.
once,
So he was one of the earlier founders of social linguistics, correct?
yeah, that's right. And so one study that he did is he went to New York City. He went to the department store, and I don't remember, I think it was men's shoes or whatever. And he
Uh-huh.
got in the elevator and he asked people, he said, "Excuse me, where can I find men's shoes?" And they said, "The fourth floor." And this is New York, right? New York.
Right, right, right.
Notice they said it without the R. And
Mm,
then he said, "Excuse me?" And they said, they would repeat it and say, "The fourth floor." So the second time they said it with the R. And the
right.
first time, when they weren't paying any attention to the speech at all, they said fourth floor without the R. Now, what Bill LeBeau did was kind of brilliant. So he did this study at a five and dime, at a middle class store, and at a rich folks department store.
Mm.
And what he found is that a couple of things. One, and this is almost predictable in a way, the five and dime store, you got more fourth floor without the R. And of course, and then as you go up in these socioeconomic classes, you had more R's in these words. But he also found that when they repeated the word, they would pronounce the R. So this set off a whole body of research which started to looking into people's vernacular speech
Right, right, right.
and also the context of when they're speaking, right? Formal versus informal, and also the social correlates that we talked about earlier, like
Mm,
social class, level of education, gender, and how all of these other things influence the way we talk.
absolutely. Let me see. You have you have any more slides right now? If
I
not,
may
then
just
that
I'll
I
bore
can
you with
put
one
some.
more. Here's another one. Okay, so why do black people say 50 cent instead of 50,
Right.
right? And or why do black folks say business instead of business?
Right.
Let me just
That's a
pull
good
up the
one.
slide
Right.
here. Now the assumption is that there's no education, or maybe it's lazy, or maybe we just don't know how to talk right,
Right.
or maybe I don't know what's wrong with them. You get a lot of these assumptions,
Right.
but I argue that a lot of people have done this and still do this. So if you notice, so if you take the word, let's do 50
Fit.
first
Right.
versus 50. So when you pronounce the word 50, the F is what we call labial dental, lips and teeth, fifth, right? And
Right.
then the tongue has to touch some other place right behind your teeth to make the T. So you have two gestures, fifth and then T. And what you've seen here is really a simplification of those two gestures. Instead of doing those two gestures, you just do one, 50, right?
Right. Right.
Now, some would say, well, that's kind of lazy. Others clean it up and say they call it efficient.
Mm.
But
I like that.
this happens in many other languages too. So to give you a couple of examples, the word for milk in Latin was lacte, and we know that Latin turned into Italian and Spanish and French. But in Italian, the word for milk is latte.
Mm.
Notice the same thing that Black speakers are doing with 50, Italian speakers are
But
doing it with latte.
good point. So you
They say,
saying, like I was saying, if you're gonna say that African Americans when they pronounce 50 like 50, and that's you want to say that's lazy, then the Italian word for latte or latte, Italian would be a laziness
that's
way
right. Let's
of
be
saying
consistent
a
across the
Latin
board.
across the board. There you go.
Absolutely. So
Correct.
why is one considered
Right.
lazy and the other one not? That tells you if the linguistic phenomenon is exactly the same, then it's
Mm.
not the linguistic phenomenon that's in question. It has to do with the speakers and how you view
Speaker,
the speakers.
got you.
Because if there was
That's a
something
huge point.
inherently wrong about latte in this pronunciation being
Mm.
pronounced this way, then we would demonize that too
Right. Right.
and say,
Right.
what's wrong with those Italians? Something
Right.
wrong with them.
Right. Right.
But I'd also argue that we do this in American English, and there's a million examples in Spanish and so forth too.
Right. No, I got you because like you said, when you deal with Creole languages, the root of it all is the origin of it all comes from that same continent. of Africa, and how we correct the bias against and a lot of the stigmatized languages is has African origin.
Well, I would also suggest,
Correct?
Rob,
Yeah.
that there are people who do this exact same thing, like the Italians,
No,
who
no, I
don't.
know that. I know what you're saying. You're saying that they do the exact same thing. That was my point. We do. They do the exact same thing. They kind of switch up and simplify certain words. Other European languages definitely they do that. They, like I said, they do that here. Instead of saying have not,
Yeah,
it's like
right.
harike. They say hake. They put it together.
Uh-huh.
Ha ke. You know.
Yeah.
So I'm not a linguist, but I'm sure I can. There's plenty of more examples out there,
Can
but
I give you one?
they definitely do that here in Norway as well. So, but
Absolutely.
my point, remember that my point was that I'm saying the more stigmatized are the ones that look as if we're the lazy, the lazy ones are mainly the ones that are kind of have like an African origin.
Yeah. And always,
Right, right,
listen, especially in the colonial world,
right,
it's always the same groups.
right.
It's black people, it's poor people,
Indigenous,
it's
yeah,
indigenous,
right,
it's rural.
right.
It's the same ones. And
Mm,
this is not by accident.
mm,
How could it be an accidental, right?
right,
This is by design. This is um constructed.
right,
It's socially and politically constructed.
right.
It has so much to
Like
do with
you said
power.
like you said when we all damn near doing the same thing, because we're humans, so we all are doing the same. It's just, yeah, that's with any that's with anything else. You know what I mean? You have
That's what's up.
uh, a lazy excuse me, a lazy person in whatever culture. You have a bad person in whatever culture, but for some reason, just like when they had that Hurricane Katrina, or whatever, you have people going out to get food. You call that group looters and things like that, or you call that group refugees, but you call these other ones, a different name or
Political
whatnot. Right,
prisoners versus
right,
right dissidents. Yeah, and you're making a very good point, which is that a lot of this stuff, a lot of the attitudes that we have about language,
right,
really don't have anything to do with language at all.
right,
Because linguistically, when you start looking across languages and comparing them, and this is what the field of linguistics does, or look into the history of words, or we try to find biological or cognitive or social explanations or grammatical reasons behind language change, pronunciation change, meanings changing. What
right.
we find is, and many, and we talk about many, meaning hundreds and thousands of cases,
I
that
believe that.
speakers across languages are doing very similar things. And
Right.
when I say across languages, I mean minority languages,
Mm,
standard languages,
mm,
European languages, indigenous languages, African languages, Celtic, Baltic, all of these languages, we find very similar linguistic processes across the board today and also historically, as we just showed with the case with the Latin lacte.
right. Now, I remember this might go off on another track a little bit, but we're talking about, well, I mentioned to you in the so-called Black conscious community, they talk a lot about trying to revive the African language and or the connection with African languages into, like, let's say, ancient Egyptian. The Egyptian language, they try to make a link from ancient Egypt um, to West African languages of today. And so that's another type of linguistics or whatnot, I guess, another field. Um, and I see a lot of people, um, woke people, we want to call it these days, which is a
Mhm.
good thing. Which is a good thing in one way. Getting
Yeah,
back
because
to
you don't want to be asleep.
right,
You do want to be woke.
right. Getting back to our culture. Oh, somebody putting it's probably somebody Lisa Perron. Another example is
Okay,
Connecticut. Do you know Lisa Perron?
I do.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No,
I
she's
do indeed. She's a professor at Bucknell. Hi, Lisa.
uh yeah. Hey Lisa. Yeah, another example is Connecticut. Okay. Okay.
versus Connecticut.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
That's I think
Connecticut.
that's what she's going with this.
Okay, okay.
That's a very good example.
For sure,
Right.
for sure, for sure. Um, but my point is, the reason why when I saw you and I found you interesting and I wanted to bring you to the show was because if you look back in one of my previous interviews, I had interviewed a self-taught linguist when he dealt with comparative historical linguistics, and he's trying to make a relation between ancient Egyptian, what they call the Medu uh, and well, hieroglyphs would be Medu in that in their language. That's what they called hieroglyphs or whatnot. Um, and he was trying to make the relation between um, the Medu ancient Egyptian, and he can see it and compare it within like languages from the language from Senegal and certain other West African languages or whatnot. And so he's part of this wave of people that started back in I think the 1970s with this guy named Shank Anta Diop. Um, so I see a lot of those people going there, but like I told you before, not enough. It seems to be staying at home to find out the relationship between kind of African origin languages, or also the relationship between well the way you're going about it as well, social linguistics, on the way that people are understanding African Americans or whatnot, because we are African, African diaspora. So when I say African, it's hard to kind of separate it and then put it together, but just for the sake of explaining my point, um, I don't see enough people, or I haven't noticed enough people in the Black conscious community in particular. You see a lot of them trying to talk about Africa and Africa this and Africa that, which is great. But we need some of those people to. We don't have enough of those that, like kind of what you're doing, that is focusing on Creole languages that can be in Jamaica, Cuba, or what have you, or other creolized languages, in whether you're an African from Portugal, or an African in Brazil, or other places. I don't see as many trying to look at those and study those relationships between those languages to Africa, and kind of present day, whatever country they're going. They're trying to. There's a lot of them trying to go way back to study ancient Hebrew, Sumerian, and ancient Egyptian, and things like that.
Well,
Lisa Perron again says another example is Connecticut. Hi. Oh, yeah, yeah. I guess she was. No one pronounces the C. She says on the Connecticut. Yeah,
if I could comment on what you just said,
yeah,
now as linguists, I mean, linguistics is a big field. There are people who do reconstruct languages or try to go back as far as you can, and they can,
right,
because language change is so regular. In some cases, they can make these proto languages and reconstruct them, even though we've never heard them,
right,
because most languages we've never heard. There wasn't TV, there wasn't internet, there was no radios, right? Tape recorders,
correct.
but you can reconstruct to some
I'm,
degree.
I'm glad you brought that point about the. Yeah, go ahead, because I know as I'm talking, people are like, let this guy talk. I'm always like,
That's usually what they're telling me.
it
Hiram,
seemed that
you
I
talk,
always
let
see
somebody
always seen
else
a bit.
talk.
You know why? It's because sometimes when you bring something up, it didn't reminded me of what I was trying to say, or whatnot, most of the time. But
So you think about this though, but we also know that there are language families, um, and many of them have been reconstructed to as far back as some people can go. But the thing about language reconstruction, both historical and also when you compare languages across like this, is you can
right,
compare languages across like this horizontally to see if they're related to each other.
right,
Um, is that there's a difference between what's possible and what's plausible.
mm,
You see what I mean? And so when you think about the slave trade, and those individuals who were taken from Central West Africa, right? From Senegal down to Angola. And
Right.
there were some twos and fews from some other places.
Right, for sure.
But when we think about the linguistic diversity in Central West Africa, and also that's where the majority of the human beings were taken from, this is probably one of the first places that you want to look. Right? So if somebody told me that there was a treasure buried in my backyard, I'm gonna go to the backyard first.
Right.
And I'm gonna dig that up. And then if it ain't there, I might go to the neighbor's yard and I'm gonna go dig somewhere else. I might be across the street eventually, but I'm not gonna start across the street as bad as I want that gold. So as bad as folks want everything to be Egyptian and so forth.
That's a good point right there.
We have to be able to make the case for that, and we have to be able to do the construction. And the other thing about this too is we can never discount.
It's the same thing. Like remember that point. Same thing. Like people that are from Jamaica, from Cuba, whatever. And they and like I said, it's very important, and I'm glad that they have the zeal to look at the relationship and the connection to Africa. So it's but start from the country you're from. You know what I mean? Like you said, don't look
sense.
Right. That makes sense that you can and make that connection and look into those scholars or whatnot.
And so right, because when you think about the Caribbean, we know that in many cases, this is for South America and the United States. In a lot of cases, people didn't go all the way back to Africa.
Right.
To go get folks. It was too far, cost too much money.
Right.
You see what I mean? And in many cases, folks would go to the Caribbean and bring slaves from the Caribbean islands.
Absolutely.
Like English, Spanish-speaking, French-speaking,
right.
Portuguese-speaking, all sorts of things. And there was that mixture. But you cannot discount the European colonizing languages. After all, this is who we were in contact with. So if you're a Portuguese slave trader, or Spanish or French, right, or Dutch, and you go to the coast of Central West Africa, first of all, we know that they couldn't penetrate that. There were kingdoms there, right? They weren't just kidnapping butt naked people out the jungle.
Oh no!
This is what we know.
That was a farce.
But we also know that. So how do you get somebody with whom you don't have a language in common, or languages, to build a levee for you, to build a ship, to plant cotton, to harvest rice, to sew flags, to build buildings, erect structures, to become engineers? And we know that the Africans did all of this, and their descendants.
Absolutely.
You don't have a language. So these Creole languages and some other abbreviated varieties emerged out of these intense language contact situations, right? You want to call them hybrid mixed languages, whatever. But they came into, in many cases, this is how people communicated with each other through these mixed languages, which were part European, whether that be Spanish, French, Portuguese, Dutch, English, right? Or, the variety, the plethora of African languages from many different language families along the coast and slightly also into the African interior. If you don't take that into consideration, you see what I mean? You're remiss. It's kind of like you say, well,
that's what they call Creole. It's like a gumbo. You know what I mean, of different languages.
Now, if you say somebody coughed in my face, sneezed in my face yesterday, a student of mine, and they do that. They say, I'm not going to be in the class tomorrow, professor. Achoo! Right? Now, I could say, now that student got me sick. And the next day I get sick.
Right.
But I still need to factor in that I might have still touched the doorknob and then touch my mouth and my nose and rub my eye.
Right.
It's possible, and it's probable that the student got me sick.
Right.
But you got to check all your traps.
Right.
Right. You have to find out and look at what all of the logical possibilities and all of the players. If you just go and you're the police and you just go round up those felons with the pants hanging down right? The usual suspects,
Right.
but you don't look at, the businessman across the street and maybe he did
Right.
it. You see what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Linguistic detective work is very similar.
Right. Right.
We look at
Eh,
what's possible, what's
Or at
plausible.
least it should be. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. It should be.
Right.
And I think that, as you mentioned, in people's zeal and
Right.
earnestness to
Right.
want to be connected to something African, and also, mind you, let's just be frank, this is also a lot of this stuff is a response to the fact that European histories, Europeanized linguistics, European storytelling has frequently discounted the African connection and non-white contributions to the history
Absolutely.
of the world. So we understand that there's
Absolutely.
a great need to,
Right.
um, to not only listen to oral histories, but to listen to African and African American and subaltern scholars of
Right.
all ilks, kinds, and designs, right? Because we come in a parade of every shade.
Definitely.
So we know this. But in our zeal to do this, we still have to. I know I keep using a lot of illustrations and analogies,
No, it's
but
good. It's good.
but
It's good.
sometimes you watch, the Ricky, not Ricky Lake, but Maury Povich, and they do the DNA. You are not the father,
Mm.
and you
Right.
see the young woman. She want him to be the daddy of this child so bad,
Right.
right? Because she don't want this other one who ain't got no job and so
Right.
forth
Right. Right.
to be the daddy.
Right.
And so she's telling this one, you the daddy.
Mm.
Let's do the DNA. And she said, look at his forehead. Look just like him. Well, you've seen
Right.
the shows.
Right.
Look
Absolutely.
at the eyes. All of
Right.
those things may be a first indication
Uh-huh.
of right?
A possible
Relationship,
relationship.
familial
Right.
relationship.
Right.
And he said, well, those freckles, he is kind of Hiram, he is kind of pot-bellied and bald-headed, just like you.
Right.
Yeah, I would be a little nervous.
Right. Absolutely.
And also, you have to have contact too. So if you say, well, the person did have sexual relations, well, that makes it more possible and more
Right.
plausible,
Right.
right? All of these things, but
So
really, the
yeah.
smoking gun is still the DNA,
Right.
because even contact by itself does not mean that the child is right, that the paternity test is
Is
going
there?
to turn
Yeah.
out
Yeah.
positive.
Right. Right.
We've got to do the science. We've got to do the research.
Right.
And yes, we certainly have to.
Proper methodology and
You got to do things right, though.
right.
That's how I would start to answer.
Right.
Those brothers and sisters that's doing this type of work.
Right. Definitely. And I think more and more are starting to learn how to do the proper methodology now, more so, as they have more educated brothers in the conscious community that I see that are influencing it in the right way. Like I interviewed one not too long ago. It seems like he's part of a group of people that uh, are trying to change that. Um, yeah, you about to say something?
Yeah, and we've got a lot of new technology too that was
That
unavailable.
was correct.
Databases, and we can
Also,
track the slave ship voyages and stuff.
right, right.
All kinds of stuff, right? Digital this and
And you also mentioned that languages, especially ancient languages, where we don't know how, when we try to deconstruct it or whatnot, or construct it, we don't know how the sounds or whatnot. Like I was talking about ancient Egyptian, supposedly they had no vowel sounds, but in their language or whatnot. And so, but we speak with vowels, and so that when they and people that are into ancient Egyptian, if they get a wind of this video, they can probably correct me if I'm wrong. But from like the word for uh, Egypt back then, one of the words was Kemet, and it's a lot of people spell it Kemet, and they throw two vowels in there, but it would be like KMT. But they kind of in their own study and
yeah.
the way
There's
that the methodology that they use, they kind of come to some sort of conclusion that it would have sounded back then like them saying Kemet or different
No,
variations of it. So like you said, but in relation to some of the languages that you may be talking about in the Americas or whatnot, and some of the ancient or older languages, yet like you said, we don't have any recordings of on some of them that people are speaking or whatnot, and so it's
yeah, and you know, and ancient Hebrew is another language. I mean, all languages do have vowels, but some of them just weren't written. They weren't written down, right? So you have the
got you.
pictograms and the hieroglyphics.
There you go. Okay,
Yeah,
got you.
and then of course you have like ancient Hebrew that was written in consonants only.
Right, right,
And later they added these little vowel points to represent the vowels. So like a
right.
word like Yahweh, there's a
Speaking.
big debate
Oh
because
yes.
people
No,
don't.
my bad. No, I was gonna say since I brought it up, uh,
Sure.
we're gonna talk. We're gonna go back to Yahweh. So I can remember that
Okay.
thought.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna be interviewing an Egyptologist on Thursday evening. Dr. Kara Cooney, the Egyptologist from
Okay. Very
America,
cool.
the UCLA professor, that has written when women ruled. She has a new book coming called, I think, The Good King, I believe, but that's coming out soon in November in the fall. But yeah. Anyway, go ahead. We're talking about Yahweh. We're talking about ancient Hebrew or
Yeah.
whatnot.
So there's always been a historical debate about what's the pronunciation of the divine name, which they
Right.
call the tetragrammaton, right? The
Right.
four letters YHWH, because in the ancient Hebrew Bible, we don't know what the vowels were. So is it
Right.
pronounced Jehovah? Is it three syllables? Is it two
Right.
syllables? Yahweh?
Right.
Is it a ya? Is it a ja? A v
Right.
or a w?
Right.
Um, but yeah, but these are things that in some cases can be worked out, and in
Right.
other cases we just don't have the
The
evidence
mean. Yeah. Mm.
and the means, right? But we make educated guesses,
Right.
and we say stuff like it's most likely. Try not to be too dogmatic,
Right. Right.
but there are some ways that we can kind of get at some of these questions.
Is there any new things that you're kind of working on now currently, or researching, or anything like that coming in
Yeah.
the in the
So
in the in the
most,
works
yeah, absolutely. An
that you
article
can
just,
talk about or that you're able to
yeah.
announce? I guess that might
No,
be
I
it.
can talk about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Or mention
yeah,
whatnot.
for sure. Um, I just had a new article come out in the journal, Linguistic Journal, Language Variation and Change, with my co-author, Estilita Cassiani
Okay,
Obeso.
okay.
And she and I,
I take it she's Spanish speaking.
you
Yeah.
know what? She's from Palenque,
Oh, okay,
so she
okay.
speaks Spanish, and
And
her
the
family speaks
dialect of
Palenquero and Spanish.
Palenquero. Okay, got you.
So we
Cool, cool.
actually co-authored a paper together. And I think it's so important that people, community members, are part of the scientific research of their own communities.
Yeah,
Doesn't
that's
mean you can't go do research someplace else. I'm not suggesting that.
right.
That's what National Geographic is all about.
Right.
But
That's big what you just said. That's big what you just said about the community being part of the study and input
so this is
and the
this so this
data
is
and
cool
all that.
stuff. Yeah, man, this is cool stuff. And then, of course, something else that I've been kind of working on is my grandmama. Her speech. My grandmama was from Georgia, from Sparta,
Okay.
Georgia, born in 1928. And as she described it, in an old plantation-like barn, she said. And she even
Mm,
said there were so many holes in that roof that you could see the moon and the stars and the whole, what she said, the whole element up there.
wow.
And she also confided that she said she didn't know what a window pane was until she met my granddaddy. And he was in the military and they moved to New York and so forth.
Gotcha.
But the interesting thing about this research is that my grandmama used to say stuff that, and going back to the Oxford English Dictionary, when you look the word up in the dictionary, it says it's obsolete, that nobody uses it anymore. And I said,
Mm,
that's not true. My grandmama used to use it. So this example of, you could look up in the roof and see the moon and the stars and the whole element.
mm,
Well, OED lists that term element as an obsolete way to say the moon and the stars, the heavens. In mainstream
Gotcha.
English, we don't use it that way.
Gotcha.
Another example was now I'm pulling examples out of thin air. Oh,
Huh.
a waste. Oh,
A
no,
waste.
actually, let's use the verb to waste.
Right.
So if this was full of some Kool-Aid or some soda, something I really don't want to spill on my shirt, right,
Right.
or on the carpet, and I accidentally knock it over, my grandmama would say, "You wasted the Kool-Aid on the carpet."
Hmm.
Now, what she meant was not because in mainstream English, waste means either intentionally, you're
Right.
being wasteful, or
Right.
through negligence of your negligence.
Hmm.
But in her variety of English, it means just an accident, and it always referred to a liquid. Now, if you look this word up, waste, the verb, in OED, it says old usage a couple hundred years ago to accidentally spill a liquid. Now
Okay.
obsolete. So yeah, man.
Gotcha.
So these are the types of things that I've been
Right.
really interested in, and this
Okay.
is also type of stuff that the advisory research board is getting down with. So
Got you. Do you know when did they say that it's coming out? The revision, the new
the first one is going to be September. At least that's the target date.
okay.
So I mean, that's
Right.
up to them. We'll see if they meet that date or if they
Right.
have to
Right.
move it. But that's my understanding.
Okay. No, I saw that you had a post also when you was talking with you was in the chat room with Schumer, Senator Schumer, or
Yeah.
whatnot. Was that dealing with the Oxford? No, that
No,
wasn't good. No, my bad.
now that one I do got to
I was
keep
like, why
under.
why would they even say that? Because Oxford's out of England, so that yeah.
Now that one I do got to keep under wraps.
Oh, okay. Maybe I shouldn't have mentioned that.
No, it's all
Okay,
good.
all right.
But
We're gonna leave that alone then.
I can say this about it. No, I can say this. What started off is just trying to get some funding for linguistic research.
Got
Um,
you.
some colleagues of mine, um, and I don't know if they want me to mention their names or not. Maybe it's a good plug for them, or maybe it's not. But they somehow got a meeting with him,
Got you.
and he listened, and he's interested in hearing more about it and doing something about that. That's all I
Okay.
can.
Okay. Cool. 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 So yeah, yeah. So you got some publication about to happen, or you right in September you said about the Palenquero or whatnot. Yeah, cool. No,
I'm just trying to stay busy, man. You
yeah,
know, the pandemic driving you crazy, so just close
absolutely,
to the grindstone.
absolutely. It drove me crazy enough to start
Because if I'm not
just
right, Robbie,
so called call myself a vlogger or yeah, yeah, or a vlogcast. Well, I don't really have my microphone set up to have a podcast vlogcast or whatever you want to call this. No, it drove me to kind of get into some of the interests that I had of myself to tap and I don't know, send you guys messages and see if I can get a hold of some of you guys to interview. Um, yeah, no, I think we kind of went in on what we needed to today. I'm
all
hoping
right.
to get you back again another time to go deeper into the N word and the usage of the N
Yeah,
word
yeah,
and,
because that really is a whole nother.
right, and then with
Yeah,
that one you can get more into your PowerPoints and slide thing. Um,
for sure.
yeah, no, I think
Well,
that
I
that pretty
appreciate
much
it.
wraps it up. Let me see how much time I gotta look on. I'm gonna look on it. How much time have we gone?
It's 1:15 Eastern Standard Time, so I think it's been
Okay,
about an hour and
but
15 minutes.
about 15 minutes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Cool, cool,
And
cool.
notice we say 15.
Yeah, not 15, 15, 15. Yeah.
Yeah,
But anyways, brother.
for sure. The L
Um,
Town.
right. L Town. Maybe another day we can talk more about your biography, not the short biography, but a longer one later, because
I
I
would
think
be
it's
glad to.
because I think it's important because when we talk about I watched this movie last night with Idris Elba. Got to check it out on Netflix. The cowboy. What was it called? Dang it! It has cowboy in it. It's about some black cowboys, in the urban community outside of Philadelphia, well, on the outskirts or within Philadelphia. Uh, well, there was it had, that was one part of it, but it was about a boy that he was living in Detroit, and his father was living in Philadelphia, and he was a cowboy. And his mother, he was making a lot of trouble in school and all these things like that, and his mother sent him to his father, and so he learned about the learn some discipline and things like that, and also the history of cowboys in Philadelphia. It was real good last night. But one of my points was, the reason why I want to get into that longer bio is because there was this one point in particular where he was talking about fathers and not having fathers in their life uh, for the most part. And I know about you because we personally talked about that, and I know that was a big impact for you. If I can say that, your father had, lost his life when you before you
My
was
biological father,
but
I did talk.
I'm sorry, your biological father,
Yeah,
in before you was 1 years old in a tragic car
yeah.
accident. So and you took many life, uh, different paths, but you end up becoming a
Rob, I did a
professor.
lot of zigzagging.
There we
Hey,
go. There we
hey,
go.
more zagging than zigging.
Right. And but yet you still overcame a lot of things and doing good things, and that's a good example. And yeah, no, in the movie they were talking about John Coltrane because he didn't have a father in his life, and
Yeah,
yet he's a genius,
yeah,
and other people. Anyway, brother, I appreciate the interview
yeah.
in a mini lecture or
Indeed.
whatnot. Next time we'll definitely get into the usage of the N word. Um, I guess that's kind of like it's off of your publication. Has nigga been reappropriated as a term of endearment as well? That's one kind of part of it. But
Okay.
anyway, he has a YouTube channel. I will drop his YouTube channel underneath this YouTube video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and also go to his, like and subscribe, and listen to some of his. He has a video about what was it, the sunken monkey?
Oh, the signifying monkey.
Oh, excuse me. What is it, signified or the sun? I thought it said sunken. I don't
No,
know.
the
I was like, no, I don't
signifying.
know why I was saying.
That's
Yeah,
the
could you quickly go on what that's about right there to the signified
well. You
monkey?
think, yeah, the signifying
Right,
monkey.
right.
That's
It it was a poem. No, it wasn't a poem, was it? It
yeah,
was
it's
or
African American folklore. But the
folklore.
signifying monkey
Right. Very
is
short. You can just
yeah, it's funny. But the term signifying is also Black English. you
right,
know. So if
right,
somebody be signifying, they stirring up stuff, they're
right,
causing conflict between people, double talking, And anyway, this signifying monkey, he's doing all this. But the
right.
signifying monkey actually, the archetype goes all the way back even to African storytelling.
Mm,
See the signifying monkey in like Brer Rabbit and Brer Fox and Bugs Bunny.
right.
Bugs Bunny is always signifying,
Mm,
mixing stuff up, getting two people to fight against each other. Yeah, so a lot of these things that are in American culture that we look at as everyday symbols of just mainstream culture um, come from African American and even African roots
ab-
storytelling. So,
absolutely.
but it's funny though, the
Right,
story. So they can check that out.
right. They can check that out. Like I said, I'm gonna drop his YouTube link underneath this video, and also maybe his university link if you want to get reach out to him. I guess. And, well, they can plug you. They can plug you in and see where at Bucknell. But the YouTube link. I don't know if there's anything
I have
else.
a blog page, and I'll
Okay,
send you
there
the
you
link to
send
my
me that
blog page.
for sure, for sure.
Yeah,
You send me that, I guess on Messenger, and then I can just get
yeah,
it
for
in,
sure.
put whatever information or whatnot you want me to put under here. So the YouTube and then the vlog page. There you go. If they want to contact you or just listen to some of your videos or whatnot, and we will have them again about the N word. And then you know, you never know, it's something else. We make a series out of some of the topics that he's touching or whatnot. So this won't be the last time you hear of him. Um,
Let's hope not.
yeah, yeah.
You never
Like
know.
the Muslim brothers say,
We
inshallah.
dropping like flies.
Right, right. Yeah, you know what I mean. We get in that age group. You got them, yeah, them rappers, them rappers, DMX, Black Rob, and
Yeah, man.
yeah, you never
Yeah,
know, man, for
yeah.
real.
That's real talk.
But anyway, all right, brother. I salute you.
Yes,
What you doing?
for sure. Appreciate that. Yeah,
All right,
likewise.
all right.
All
Till
right.
next time.
Till next time. Peace.
All right, and don't forget to like and subscribe, everybody. Peace.